Okay, as a preliminary matter, this is Brian Sullivan, Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Rima Sherry?
Aye.
Brooke Moore?
I'm here.
Dave Iverson?
Aye.
Allison Mitchell?
Aye.
Welcome, Don Holgate.
Hi.
Thanks
Aye.
for joining us. We're excited to have you. And Penny Dye.
Aye.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tucker Holland.
Here.
Okay, that's all I see. I don't think we have any anticipated speakers. Good afternoon. This open meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Affordable Housing Trust is convening via video conference via the Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that the meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Supporting materials have been provided to the trust, are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We will now turn to the first item on the agenda, but before we do, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to participate, to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Please remember to mute your phone or your computer when you're not speaking. And please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you. State your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their name and be acknowledged and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call. With that, we will move to the first item on the agenda. Scroll to it, which is an approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I just have, Sally,
Yes,
if I
Patty.
might, I have a quick question. I only got the draft agenda. Was there a final agenda?
I pulled it off of the town's website, is the one that I'm working
Oh,
from.
that's what I'll go to do then. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. So I'm looking for a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
So second by Brooke, by roll call. Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Don Holgate,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
Allison Mitchell,
Aye.
and then Brian Sullivan's an aye. We're going to hold item 3, the approval of the minutes, till the September meeting. Item number 4, I have public comment for anything that's not on the agenda. We have 2 members of the public here on Zoom, Mr. Dickler and Ms. Kuspa. Can I recognize either of you for any public comment?
No comment.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda, we have a closing cost assistance program application for the Travis
Tavares.
Thank you. Tavares family at 3 Quail Lane. Does anybody have any questions about the application that was sent? Dave?
Just and I don't mean this in any bad way. I just that I noted that they had a house for sale on the Cape, yet it wasn't shown in their numbers as far as assets.
Okay, I don't know anything about that. And as the office who would look through that application, can you elaborate on that for us?
Sure. A part of the covenant application is a evaluation of assets. So we have looked at that. As far as the application for this closing cost assistance, I don't know about that, but I can tell you that they meet the requirements for the covenant program to qualify as a qualified purchaser for the covenant program, because that is a covenant home in existence right now today, the 3 Quail Lane.
No, yeah, and through you, Mr. Chair, no, I appreciate that. I just don't, it's a bad optic and I'm just concerned about that. I mean, I completely trust you've done your homework and that it's all on the up and up. It's just the optics.
So the equity in that home sale won't push them over the allowable amount?
No, what we do is we figure out the either the assessed or an appraised value of the home. We get their most recent mortgage statement. So then we take out what they owe to the bank from the equity in the home. So then we can figure out what their actual asset as part of that home ownership is. And then that needs to be below the qualifying, which is what, 445 or something like that. So they do meet that requirement.
Great, thank you, Ann. Brooke?
So I'd like to comment that folks are allowed to have assets, other assets that could be stocks and bonds. And in this case, it happens to be real estate. And I also know that there are other covenant homeowners who own property off island. So I believe the only limitation in the covenant program is you can't own property on Nantucket, correct?
Yeah, you can't own residential real estate property on the island. And then once you're a covenant homeowner, the covenant home needs to be your primary residence and you can't rent it out as a whole at all. And then you need to live there 10 out of 12 months per year.
Okay, I think just clarify that for the public.
Great, thank you,
There
Brooke.
are fines we can impose also when people do violate that, $300 per day per violation, and we do impose those fines.
Tucker?
Yeah, so I mean, I get where the origin of Dave's question comes from. It's in the one case they've disclosed that they own a residence in West Yarmouth, and it's not the value is not listed under the household assets, which it's not required to be here. But what is included in the application is their certificate from Housing Nantucket that they have gone through that financial vetting and they are a qualified buyer as well. There's a copy of the deed for the subject property, 3 Quail Lane, which they are acquiring, and that property is restricted by the covenant program. So they have provided all of the required documentation for the program. You know, I think this is a worthy family and that they do meet all of the criteria. The one thing that we actually do not have yet from them, and I would just make any motion if the board were so inclined to approve this, subject to simply our receipt of the official loan estimate of closing costs. We received a sort of an unofficial version, and we need to get the official version. And the applicant had anticipated having that by last Friday, but we've not received it yet.
Thank you, Tucker. More discussion from the board, Penny?
If there's no more discussion, I would like to make a motion to approve the request for the CCAP application for the Tavares at 3 Quail Lane, subject to an official estimate of the loan closing costs.
Second.
Great, thank you, Penny. Dave, did you second that?
I did.
Did I hear that? You did. Okay, second from Dave Iverson. By roll call, Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Don Holgate,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
Allison Mitchell,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Thank you. Moving to an update on the housing production plan. Tucker,
Yeah,
come to you.
just a quick update on that, Mr. Chairman. The the housing production plan is going to be sent in to DHCD next week. There have been some changes that have been not changes in substance, but incorporating the photos that many of you sent. I want to thank Brooke and Rima and Anne in particular for sending photos that will, better graphically illustrate the document, as well as some of the final tweaks that came out of the discussions at the planning board, as well as amongst yourselves. Judy's office has been in the process of moving, so this will go in next week, and that's well in advance of when our current plan expires. So in good shape.
Tucker, was there any feedback from any of the other boards that reviewed the document for a future housing trust board to be in consideration of the next time one's created? Or
there weren't a lot of material comments that came out of the further reviews. I mean, I think that the planning board chair, Judith Wagner, was very complimentary of the trust and the consultants on the work that and thought that had gone into this plan. And I would say there were sort of similar comments made at the select board review. And so I cannot recall anything of note from the discussions.
great, thank you. Does any other members have questions? Seeing none, I think we can move on to a project update. That's item number 7.
So as you all recall, at our July meeting, we had fairly detailed updates across particularly the 31 Fairgrounds Road project and the Richmond Wildflower Acceleration Project. So these are just meant to be some brief updates today. And Anna, I'll let you speak to 31 Fairgrounds since you're here if you'd like to. I can give the quick update from Richmond on where they are today relative to the update, the written update that they gave in July. They have indicated that things are proceeding well. The third-party BBRS review is taking slightly longer. That's the state review, I think, around the hurricane strength of windows. Our loan appraisal, and I'm reading from Dave's note, our loan appraisal in phase 1 for Easton Bank are complete and have been signed off on by the lender. We are set to close on our construction mini perm loan in the next 2 weeks. We have made full deposits on all 3 modular buildings with signature building systems, and the slots on the assembly line for all 3 buildings have been reserved. Still hoping for full building permits by the end of October at this point, given the third-party review. This has been pushed out, to that type of time frame. And that's the update on Wildflower. So Anne, if you wanted to speak to 31.
Sure thing, thank you. Yeah, things are moving along well there too. We're about 75% of the way through HDC approval. So we're really excited about that, and also very grateful to the HDC and the town for looking at this and prioritizing the creation of affordable housing on this site. So that's been very helpful. We have a couple buildings that really, it's just the 2 buildings that need to go through the Americans with Disability Act. What do they call it? They have another acronym for the actual design of those buildings, but it's basically making them accessible, making apartments in those buildings accessible. So that's the holdup for those other 2 buildings, but we expect to be ordering the modular buildings that have been approved by HDC within the next couple of weeks, and then they'll get delivered, fingers crossed, by October 1st. And we hope to really, you'll start seeing some real progress over there around that time.
And you're hoping to order the boxes to be delivered this October 1st?
Yeah.
Oh, what, through which company?
Well, I know that Mr. Cassidy has kind of teed this up with the company that he's using.
Got it.
Um,
So he's
I
holding
believe
some space. Okay, great.
yeah, they've been holding space and they knew what the designs generally were. So then now that we have the specifics all nailed down, then he can actually pull the trigger with them. And I think it's Kaiser, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So that's the company.
Great. Awesome. That's exciting. Anyone else have any questions or? No?
So the other item on the list is 6 Fairgrounds, Tacoma Green. And as you all know, the developer received the tax credit award as well as notice from Mass Housing for some additional support toward workforce housing. And they have been working very closely with their building partner in this on, putting a fine point on pricing. Fortunately, lumber prices have stabilized a little bit, but there's no question that costs are going to be up from where they originally anticipated. So they, they're moving along, and we'll know a little bit more by our next meeting in September.
Great. Thank you, Tucker. Seeing kind of no hands waving or questions on that item, we'll close that update and move to item 8. Regarding the hiring of the housing real estate specialist, or not necessarily hiring, but the advertising for the qualifications. Tucker?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you all saw, the posting for this position was put out there last week, and advertising is presently happening. And I would just encourage you all to circulate widely and let us know if you have any candidates who you think might be a good fit for this position. Please direct them our way. And, this is certainly something that we would like to have filled with a strong candidate at the first possible opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Tucker. Now to item 9 on the census data. Do you want to work through an interpretation of what we've seen so far? Or?
Sure. So I just thought it might be worth taking a moment to discuss some census information that I had sent out to you all following the release of the sort of first official wave of census information. And I guess the part of it that is particularly relevant to our work is obviously around the housing unit count. And so Nantucket's total housing units went from, in 2010, according to the US Census, 11,618 to 12,169 in 2020, which is only a net increase of 551 units. It's neither here nor there, but I have to scratch my head a little bit about that arithmetic. The reason I say that is, as part of the submission for the Housing Choice Communities designation, the part of the application requires you to provide net new building permit information to the state looking back over a 5-year period. And we've obviously done that exercise a couple of times as we were part of the inaugural class of Housing Choice Communities and then re-upped our membership, if you will, in that a couple of years later. And in just those 5 years that we were required to provide, net new building permits were 650. So the net increase of 550 just feels like a bit of a puzzler, but that is what it is according to the US Census. I guess of even greater interest to us is the number of occupied units on Nantucket according to the US Census. An occupied unit does not necessarily translate directly to what is considered a year-round unit with regard to the state's Chapter 40B 10% requirement. As an example, in 2010, our occupied units, according to the US Census, were 4,229. The number of year-round units, according to the state, which has been the basis of our 10% number this last decade, was 4,896 units. What is interesting is that occupied unit number has gone from 4,200 and change in 2010 to 5,478 in 2020. So another way of looking at it is 36% of our total units in 2010 were considered occupied. In 2020, 45% of our total units are considered occupied. And that, I guess I would say, likely will have implications for where our 10% number is headed. And I guess, trying to think about why this may be the case in terms of the big jump in the occupied percentage is if you think about the timing of the US Census in 2020 and the fact that the period of the census was extended from April till October, and the timing of the pandemic, it would be somewhat logical to think that one of the possibilities for this change is that a number of folks who normally reside at a home location off island were in fact, here and occupying their residence in 2020 when the census was taken. So it remains to be seen how much of an impact that will have on our 10% number. We will not know the new 10% number from the state, most likely till the either the fourth quarter of this year or the first quarter of next. But I just wanted to bring this topic up, and Penny has diligently had her hand raised.
Thanks, Tucker. Go ahead, Penny.
I wasn't sure anybody saw me. Two things. I have a comment and then a question. On the increase of 551 units, I want to point out that a lot of those permits are for structures that are replacing existing structures.
Okay. Yep.
That's a really crucial thing. I mean, people are moving, knocking down, whatever.
Yeah, and the info, like as we provide it to the housing choice people, we have to look at the new building permits and deduct the demo permits.
Right.
So it is net, but to the extent a lot of that work is expansion, that's a good point.
Yeah. So, and then a question, which is you refer to the occupied units and you have those numbers for 2010 and 2020.
Yep.
What is the definition of that versus the definition of the year-round units? Yeah,
and I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what defines what is considered occupied for the US Census and what defines what is considered year-round for the state. So I will get more information from DHCD about that for our next meeting.
because I think that would be helpful because there could be some minor thing that they need to be educated about here or
Yep.
something. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Penny. Any other questions or comments on the census data? Dave?
When they come up with the number, Tucker, I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, is there wiggle room? I mean, can we challenge the number or no? It's the number they come up with.
Well, I know that we're able to challenge, for example, our population number. So, our population changed during the same period by roughly 40%. And it's gone from 10,000 and change to 14,000 and change. And a lot of people, I think, feel that even that large jump doesn't capture truly what is our year-round population. So we can challenge it. And Dawn, I don't know if you may have more insight on, the process for that or not, or if we plan to challenge it.
I don't think we haven't even discussed it yet. Sorry.
That's all right.
Brian.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
But I mean, I would probably personally like to challenge the year-round population, the total population year-round, but I'm not sure about a necessity to increase the shy units that we have to have. I would rather start to focus on other home ownership opportunities at all income levels.
Mm-hmm.
Brooke?
Yeah, I mean, I think the unfortunate outcome of a substantial increase in our shy number is that is where our resources, if we want to stay in safe harbor, will have to go. And we'll have to be prioritizing investment in that safe harbor management process for probably a number, potentially a year or two longer than we had hoped under the old number. So it's a little demoralizing if it's the case. On the other hand, if it is possible that we were just simply miscounted 10 years ago, substantially undercounted, and that this is a more accurate count of who's living here and how many units are occupied. I mean, I think it's interesting that the whole purpose of Chapter 40B is to identify how many people are living here and what the housing demand is. And so if it's done a better job of that, on the one hand, that's important information to have. On the other hand, it just constrains us under the requirements of Chapter 40B longer. So, I mean, it's a process problem, but we have to deal with the outcome. We're going to have to respond to whatever the outcome is. I mean, obviously, if there's a way to persuade Boston that, the number is incorrect in some way, but how would we even know that? What argument would we make? It's just a thing that's floating around in my head.
Thank you, Brooke.
Mm-hmm.
Any more comment, Tucker?
So, I mean, Dave, you've pointed out, and I'll quote him from a prior conversation, this may be the perfect storm of the census being taken at a time during the pandemic when folks chose to reside here, understandably. And the question will be whether the state ends up interpreting an occupied unit, as actually like their year-round residence. So, to Penny's question, I'm going to get some more information from them on how that might work.
Right, primary versus occupied.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, the 2010 was the bottom of the economy as well. So Nantucket wasn't an easy place to live when there wasn't a lot of jobs, versus completely the opposite now. Seeing no more or any hands, no waves. Okay. We'll close census data conversation. Move to item 10, community land trust discussion. There's two items. Some members of the trust and some members of the land bank and some town officials took a trip to Martha's Vineyard. So we'll look for a report there and then open for any kind of next steps conversations. I participated on that trip. Other members here that were here with Brooke and Tucker. I'll leave it to Tucker to go through kind of the full itinerary of who was there, but and exactly what we did. But we got to see a number of different properties that the Island Housing Land Trust and the Land Bank of Martha's Vineyard have worked in conjunction in developing for housing, and they have done a number of projects over the years, it seems, and the way that they've worked together has definitely benefited Martha's Vineyard in creating both homeownership and rental opportunities. What conveyed very clearly to me is that these deals need to come together on the very, very early side with full participation of both groups and not prior to either in any ownership. But it was interesting how the land bank would use some land to provide space for septic systems or wells or purchase restrictions on open space to be able to bring down some of the cost on the developable areas for housing. So, and I think my general impression was all parties who attended left feeling more educated about the process than when they arrived. It was enlightening and eye-opening from my perspective. Mm-hmm. But I'll turn to Tucker and or Brooke for their thoughts and comments.
I've done a lot of talking so far. I would ask if Brooke wanted to comment on it first.
No, yes, it was a very collegial trip. It was a really great opportunity for particularly folks from the land bank and us to just get to know each other on a sort of like this formal and informal basis as we spent the day together. And that was really nice. And I think helping to build an understanding of each other's priorities and then using the vineyard's history and track record as sort of a launching pad for discussion about how we might take the principles of collaboration and bring them and adapt them to what might work well here on Nantucket. The vineyard has very different regulatory framework than we do. And they are not, they have a regional planning commission called the Martha's Vineyard Commission, which has authority that exceeds Chapter 40B. So in essence, developers don't bring 40B developments to the vineyard because the Vineyard Commission can squash them. And so we don't have that framework here. And so they have a level of flexibility in terms of what they choose to develop because they are not under that pressure of Chapter 40B, which makes it completely distinct in what they've done and what their priorities are. They also regulate growth based on septic loads. They have a very, very different zoning and regulatory framework from Nantucket. But having said all of that, the principle of collaboration was clearly at the front of mind of everyone there. And I think the land bank will be open to suggestions, and we're hoping that they will bring suggestions to us as they are in their acquisition process as well. So that sum it up, Tucker?
Sure. And then we obviously spent time with Philippe Jordy of the Island Housing Trust, and that is a model kind of in the vein, I think, maybe of what Don was speaking about a few moments ago in terms of other things on the housing front that we can be doing for the year-round community beyond the important work around shy list management and creating a new and suitable rental stock. So there's a lot of there are a lot of different ways that a land trust could go, or a housing trust. I think at our next meeting, we're probably going to, get into that in greater detail. Right now, we're kind of pulling things together. Anne has offered to share some of the information that they gathered a few years ago when they took a first look at this. Philippe has been tremendously forthcoming with information about the island housing trust itself, and so we want to kind of get things assembled and have a meaningful discussion at an upcoming meeting.
Does anybody have any questions? Penny, I saw your hand for a minute for any
Yeah,
of the members that attended.
I just have some historical perspective that might be helpful. I used to be vice chair of the Massachusetts Association of Regional Planning Agencies when I was vice chair of the NPNEDC here on Nantucket. And Nantucket is the only one of the entire state that doesn't have the same regulatory powers as they do on Cape Cod and the Vineyard and the rest of the state. And it really, in terms of what it's able to accomplish, it's somewhat hobbled, I think, by that in its long-term planning abilities. Just an opinion perspective. Thanks.
Penny, I'll ask you this question since you brought it up. What I learned on that trip is that the Martha's Vineyard Commission was created quite a long time ago. Did I lose you? The picture went out.
No, I'm here. I just have a phone call coming in. I'm sorry. And yeah,
what I learned was it was created back in 1974. It sounds like in a very different environment, and I don't know if those options exist.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that their commission was created in response to an unfriendly golf course development. But we used to meet. The three of us would meet. Nantucket and the Vineyard and the Cape Cod Commission would meet on a pretty regular basis. And I don't know, Dave could address this, but I don't think that's really happening any longer.
Not since I've been there.
No. I just mention it by way of history. I mean, when they put zoning in here, they used Rhode Island. So anyway.
Any other questions? Seeing them, we'll move on to the next item. Get my agenda back. Land trust. Next steps at this point. Are there any next steps related to this at the moment?
I think at our next meeting we'll have a bigger discussion.
Okay. All right, moving to item number 11, the funding request from Housing Nantucket for 46 Orcoa house move. So why don't I open this to Anne on the request and kind of follow through on the paperwork. Anne?
Sure, thank you. I want to thank you for considering this request. We have a dwelling that's been offered to us at 24 Woodbine. That's a 3-bedroom structure, and we would like to relocate it to our property at 46 Arkawa Avenue, which already has permanent affordable housing deed restrictions on it. We are trying to do this, and one of the things that is so great about this is it will create not just one, but 2 SHI-listed units. And let's see, kind of some background information. We used to go to the Community Preservation Committee for this sort of request, but this is something that we've had in the works for quite a few years. Now we have a yes, thank you. Now you can see why we're so excited about this dwelling. It is an amazing dwelling that really we just hope to move over the road. There's some parts of our budget, like we have to improve the septic at the site where it's going. That's going to be expensive. We have to take the decks off, unfortunately, because to move it over the road, those can't really go with it. And they're mahogany, so they're going to be tough to maintain. But the windows are good. The kitchen you can see is good. The bathrooms are good. It's 2.5 bathrooms in that house. We'll be doing a full foundation under there. the septic capabilities at the location where it's going is a 3-bedroom. We have a 3-bedroom septic capability, but we're not finishing the basement at the new location, but kind of anticipating that perhaps if down the road, town sewer goes down there, that eventually we might be able to finish out that and offer another bedroom there as well. I kind of jumped in here, but September 15th, we just got our building permits. So we've been approved to move this structure on September 15th. And we hope to get it all buttoned up in the next 6 months. We will be awarding this 3-bedroom rental opportunity by lottery. So we need to advertise it within the community so people will be aware of this opportunity. It's a new one. We won't be selecting the tenants from our ready to rent list. That's a shy requirement. What else? The rent, I know I have some figures. Not sure if you all can see that, but I can share my screen if it works, or you can look at our budget. But the rent will be about $2,100 a month. For a 4-person household, we're looking to target about, say, $80,000 per year. So anywhere from $63,000 to about $84,000 is the eligibility window for a 4-person household. But anybody, yes, there you go. From a 3-person household until a 6-person household would be eligible for this opportunity. The building was built in 2001. It's in great shape. It's gently used, and the way that we came upon this opportunity, we found the notice, the demo notice in the paper, and we reached out to the donor directly, or the homeowner directly, to ask them if they'd consider donating it to us. So usually that's not how we find these kind of opportunities. We usually get the call directly from the donor, and the donor is prepared to contribute financially to the costs that we have. But in this case, the donor was not able to do that. So there's a bigger gap that we have to go out there and fundraise. So we're working on that through other avenues as well. What else? We had a bit, you can see in the funding sources right by the cursor down there. We had some money left over from CPC. Yes, that was from an old grant from FY17 that we haven't been able to use because nothing, the CPC grants are very strict. So we couldn't find a project that met what we actually made the grant request for, and that was approved at town meeting until now. So now we can use about $95,000 from CPC. The ask of the trust right now is $300,000, and then we're pursuing a couple other different avenues to get a $36,000 or more, just because we don't know exactly what it's going to cost us. But other fundraising initiatives we've got in the fire. We want to put some solar panels on there too, so that will help the tenants to manage their utility bills, and then also give access to clean energy to people who just ordinarily wouldn't have access to that. So that's what we're trying to do, and I hope that if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. But I think it certainly meets the criteria of what you're trying to do too, and we're happy to partner up on this one with you.
I see Penny has her hand up for a question. You're on mute, Penny. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Did Ian, just through Sully to you, did you say that the donor's not in a position to help fund any of this?
That's right. Yeah, we tried. I mean, the ask.
How do you get an answer to a question like that then? I'm just curious.
Meaning, like, how did we lay it all out, and how did it go down?
How do you make the determination that they can't fund it? I mean,
they said no. We asked them and they said no. So they were going down a different route. Apparently somebody else had approached this donor as well, because like I said, it was in the paper. So they were getting other people contacting them saying, I'll take this dwelling for free from you.
Okay.
You don't have to give any money. For us, we need cash to take it away. So we were losing this opportunity. So that's when we said, okay, fine, we'll take it for free and we'll just go out and raise money from other sources to cover the costs.
Okay, and then just a follow-up question. Does the building have to be cut into sections to get moved?
No, it doesn't. And that was another reason why we really like this building. Even though it's 24 feet wide, there are a lot of tree trimming that needs to happen that along the road. Woodbine is pretty narrow at this point. It's a 40-foot road, but the trees have grown in quite a bit. So we need to cut back the trees on the sides of Woodbine, and then potentially also Massachet to get to Boulevard. And then once we're on Boulevard, that's wide enough where we won't need to do that until we get to Orkawa again. And that little part of Orkawa, there's going to be a lot of tree trimming that has to happen there too. But other than that, the building doesn't need to get cut.
Okay, thank you.
And I have one sort of on topic, off topic. I see that you had a $35,000 solar budget there. I'm curious, who gets to take advantage of the 26% tax deductions that come with a solar installation? Are you able to take those, or can you sell them off, or?
No, and that's been one of the troubles that we've had, and we're working with Representative Fernandez about this, but this is a hurdle for us because we're a nonprofit. We don't get the tax benefits of installing the solar panels on there. So there's a company, first of all, we're working with Xmart, and that's where we got that estimate. So that's what it is going to cost to put the panels up there. We're trying to a new relationship anyway. It's a company called Resonant Energy. So they try to hook you up with a third party who would get the tax benefits of owning the solar panels themselves. And then we purchase a long-term power purchase agreement with them. And that's how we're able to get the tax savings.
Okay, because there's almost $9,000 worth of tax deduction that's being missed out there. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Any more questions on the application from Ann's group? Brooke?
If there aren't any, I'm prepared to make a motion.
I don't see any questions, so I'm prepared to hear the motion.
So I move that we approve a grant to Housing Nantucket for $300,000 for the move of this home from Woodbine to Orkawa. I don't know whether we need any conditions on it, but that's where we'll start.
Penny?
Yeah, Sally, just for clarification, what bucket is this coming out of?
I'm gonna have to defer to Tucker on that.
This is likely coming out of the CPC bucket.
Thank you.
Because it will be a shy qualified unit.
Yep.
Great.
Second,
So I think Dave just seconded Brooke's motion. Is that correct?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay, vote. Vote by roll call. Dave Iverson,
aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
John Holgate,
Aye.
Allison Mitchell,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan. Aye. Thank you, Ann.
Great
Thank
job,
you
Ann.
all.
It's
Appreciate it.
exciting.
We'll keep you posted
Thank
on
you.
the progress too, and send pictures, and of course follow us on social media because we'll be doing a lot about it on social media. Thank you.
Thank you for the thorough breakdown on the application and the budget and et cetera. I appreciate the work put into that.
No problem.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my screens here to get back to my agenda. Item number 12, CPC application for this next upcoming round of funding. So there's a nice segue from one bucket of using CPC funding to the next opportunity of requesting CPC funding. Tucker, will you take this conversation?
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I think we talked about this a little bit at our last meeting. And there is some additional information that, frankly, I'm just waiting on to incorporate into the application. But the fundamental thing that I'd like to hopefully achieve today is a decision from the trust on the amount of funding that we are seeking from this year's CPC round. And after a number of conversations and, looking at where we're at relative to CPC funding. So the $5 million that was appropriated 2 years ago at the annual town meeting, we have basically spent at this point. And that money is not only been important in the aggregate of the acquisitions and development work that we've been doing, but it's particularly important because when it comes to land acquisition, it allows us to operate more nimbly than we could if we were using another source of funding. So what we would like to seek from the CPC is an additional $5 million bonding. And that would support upcoming work we have to do in continuing our steady path on safe harbor. It would allow us to support projects much like the one that we just voted favorably for. And it would encompass, at least in the short term, the projected needs from Habitat and Housing Nantucket in terms of what they might be planning to do over the course of the next 18 months. So that is the figure that we would like to go to the CPC with. Consideration has been given to, in thinking about that number, what the CPC's obligations are. So roughly, the CPC takes in $2.5 million of revenue each year. 5% comes off the top to go towards its operational aspects. And then, as everyone is probably familiar, 10% of their revenue needs to be allocated equally to preservation, open space, and housing as a minimum. So if you view it in that way, you are basically, you're taking 2.5, deducting 875, and having effectively a net 1.675 that the CPC has to, let's say, freely distribute. You'll all recall that the $5 million bonding required a commitment on the part of the CPC to dedicate $350,000 toward bond servicing, debt servicing. And therefore, you would add an additional $100,000, considering the 10% already allocated to housing, as far as, what the available funds for free distribution might be from the CPC. So that brings us down to 1,575. If we were to be seeking an additional 5 million, interest rates may have changed, obviously slightly, although they're still in a very favorable state. And if we assume that it's roughly the same $350,000 commitment they would be making, it ends up that the CPC, if they were to approve this request, would still have just under half of its yearly revenue available to distribute across any number of other projects, preservation. Obviously, open space is an area that, with Nantucket having the land bank, that's, they typically are not awarding monies above and beyond the 10% they're required to open space. So it does leave some good breathing room, if you will, for other worthy endeavors. So that is, that is a bit of the rationale for how we're thinking about this number. The application is technically due September 10th. Brooke and Penny, you all recall, are part of a subgroup in terms of ultimately submitting the application. We do not have another scheduled meeting at this point before the application is due. It would be entirely up to the board whether the entire board wanted to review the completed application that week after Labor Day, or whether the board wanted to simply task this subgroup with, completing the application in accordance with the recommended ask of the board. So with that, maybe I would open it up to questions.
Look for questions in 1 second. Tucker, would you do me a favor? Could you just list a few of the projects that the original $5 million funding went to, just for the record?
Sure. So funding from the $5 million contributed to the acquisition of the property on Vesper Lane, the acquisition from UMass. It contributed to the land costs.
Just while you're doing it,
Yep.
just for the record, so that has the potential of how many total units? Was it 20, 22?
Well, the Vesper Lane site could accommodate up to 19 units.
19
I don't know.
units,
I
okay.
don't know if we would fully, we might do a few less than that ultimately, depending on the site design, but yes,
Yep.
up to 19.
Thank you.
And then in the case of 31 Fairgrounds, CPC monies made the acquisition of the land possible there through the grant that we gave to Housing Nantucket for that purpose. And as we all know, that will provide 22 units of housing. Then in addition, monies from the CPC, $5 million go into the Wildflower Acceleration Program that we have with Richmond, as well as supporting several projects that both Housing Nantucket and Habitat for Humanity have going on at Benjamin
Richmond
Drive.
Development.
Yeah, and Richmond Development. And then, as you all just talked about, this project from Housing Nantucket at Orkawa. So, the money has gone across a number of different projects, and, we'll be producing ultimately in excess of, 50 or 60 units. So.
Great. Thank you. Any more discussion on the recommendation for the application of $5 million? Or funding to bond up to $5 million? Yes, Penny?
No, I was just going to say, I think what our subcommittee was asking was, do we need to meet again before then? Not the subcommittee, but the Affordable Housing Trust. Tucker, did I hear that right?
Yep.
Rima?
Personally, I have every confidence in the subcommittee to complete the application. Brooke has experience doing it. It's the same from year to year. I think that it's important that we, as a board, vote on the amount and let them have at it and meet that deadline, because they're not going to take it afterwards.
No.
Dawn?
I was just going to say, I don't think I'll vote on this because I'll be voting on it on the other end as the CPC rep.
Great. Thank you. Rima, that kind of sounded like the beginning of a motion. Was there any more discussion there, or I'm prepared to hear a motion? Go ahead, Rima.
I can make the motion that we allow the subcommittee to apply to the CPC for a $5 million bond and for the purposes of shy eligible projects in coming months.
Great, thank you, Rima. Is there any discussion on the motion or a second? Tucker, for some discussion?
Well, just can we tack onto that and, for the chair or vice chair to sign any necessary documents associated therewith?
Yes.
Rima?
So added.
So back open to the floor for discussion or a second?
I'll second it.
Great. Second from Dave by roll call. Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Allison Mitchell,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
Brian Sullivan's an aye, and Don Holgate, I guess technically it's abstained from the vote for the record. Great. Excellent. Thank you, guys. Let's see. Community preservation, item number 13, budget request to the town of Nantucket, FY 2023. I can't believe we're talking about that already. Tucker?
Yeah, so we included this item just given the the time of year, and obviously this is something that we are thinking about in conjunction with CPC and other things. There are a lot of moving parts at the moment. We talked about where Six Fairgrounds is, where we're at relative to our SHI count and staying in safe harbor. And we just, had the good discussion around, the requests we're looking for from the CPC. We know from last year, there was strong support, which we very much appreciated, from the select board toward establishing a material, budget for the housing office, if you will, the $2 million, and the commitment from town administration to have that as part of the town's overall budget going forward. So I don't know, I'm going to say yet that we have a firm number that we are seeking in the way that we are from the CPC with regard to the town. I think we need to get a little greater understanding on a couple of these items and take this up again at our September meeting, but this was included as a placeholder.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or for the future discussion, Brooke?
I would agree. Certainly what our shy list number is going to inform the budget request and the needs going forward. So, I mean, not that we're going to have that answer before we need to make a final recommendation, but certainly we might have more bits and pieces of information too. But I think the important thing here is to be in having this conversation early in the budget process. We were late last year. And so it's really important that we're engaged with town administration and the select board on our needs as early as possible in their crafting of the budget for next town meeting. So.
Any other comments or? Seeing none, thank you, Brooke. We will move down to other business and a future meeting schedule. Does anybody have any issue with the listed meeting schedule that is currently identified? Rima?
Tuesday, the 28th for the special September is not optimal for me.
So that meeting was included because of a possible anticipated item that would be a rather short meeting and likely in executive session. So as long as we have a quorum for that meeting, we would be fine. It's not intended to be a general business meeting.
I could do a short exec session meeting that day.
Right.
Great. Thanks, Rima. Penny?
Yeah, I'm not going to be available on October 19th.
Noted. Anybody
Okay.
else?
Could change, but yeah.
Okay. Any more there? No, seeing none. Moving down to board comments. Do any members of the board have comments? Seeing none, I just have one. Anne updated me after we closed the item about 31 Fairgrounds. The potential delivery of the modular units are later in October, not October 1st, potentially November 1st. So just that item for clarification for the record. Seeing none other, are we going to take executive session today?
Yes, we are.
We are, okay.
Yeah.
So I will look for a motion for item number 16, executive session.
I'll do it because poor Brooke has to always do it. But
Thank
since
you,
it's
Penny.
written right here, I can do it. I propose that we end our regular meeting for the purpose of going into executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, not to return to the regular meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Don, by roll call, Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Allison Mitchell,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
John Holgate,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. And so Tucker, we have that link, if everybody can adjourn this one, and
We have
We
5
will.
minutes.
5-minute break.
Thank you.
1:45.
Good.